Hello everybody and welcome back to the British University Sim Racing Championship. We are here for the return of the F1 Winter Series. 8 rounds over the next 8 weeks to decide our final champion of 2024. And what a track to kick us off. It's the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City. 12 months ago exactly nearly, we had an absolutely epic battle between Geek and Joe as Cameron Searle showed the first signs of the dominant form that he would go on to produce over the next coming seasons. It's going to be a really interesting start, and I'm very much looking forward to it. We are on the old game, of course, still F1 23, as we were in the summer and in the virtual commentary box. It is myself, Tom, and it's Amir alongside me. How are you doing, buddy?
Thank you very much, Tom. As we're here for the first race of the 8, we're here over in Mexico, which actually has one of the longest straights right now on the calendar as well. As you mentioned before, this is where Cameron Searle showed his first signs of dominance, which he went on to continue in the summer. And for now, it's his chance to lose now to complete a triple of championships, perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah. He has been the dominant force in recent weeks and recent months on this BUSR series. And actually, for the pre-season time trial event that we had to decide the ELO ratings, he was still right at the top of the list. So, got to be the favourite going in. Joe looked pretty competitive in that. Woolly Blobs was coming on nicely at the end of last season also. And then you've got the likes of Dasher and Geek, who should always be in there. One notable omission is Matty. No more Matty Moo in the BUSR series. It's a little bit like the changing of the guard, you could say.
Yeah, it definitely is. But, as comes in for the new season as well, we'll expect to see some new drivers as well making their mark here in the BUSR series. And, as their time goes on, they'll establish their dominance here as well. So Cameron Searle as well is kind of passing along as well for these newcomers.
100%. What do you think about the track as well as we prepare to get going for our first qualifying session of the season? Mexico City Grand Prix. In the BUSR at least, it's had quite a few classics and we usually see quite a few safety cars.
Yeah, it definitely is. The Mexico Grand Prix has the notorious achievement of being the longest ever BUSR stream that we've had so far. So that just kind of shows how chaotic it can be. But, given the high elevation as well, with one of the longest straights on the calendar, as I mentioned before, the fact it's got such a high elevation means that the drivers can take advantage of having a very high downforce. And we can expect to see laps ranging in the 80 seconds.
Yeah, with all the safety cars that we tend to see, lots of opportunities for different strategies, as we've seen the soft, medium and hard tyres available for our drives. And I think we'll see all three of them at varying points throughout the race. But yeah, it's a track that I'll come over to you in a second. But that battle that I spoke about a little bit in the intro between Joe and Geek, it really set us up nicely for the Winter Series of 2023. What do you think we can expect overtaking-wise from a circuit like this?
Third one is definitely going to be the prime opportunity to overtake, given that long straight as well. It's just going to be the place where drivers can capitalize. The final sector as well, if you hold behind it through the swiggly straights a little bit, it's also going to be a good opportunity to capitalize on that as well. In regards to that, most of the time, the drivers will have to just keep use of being behind them as much as they can. It is very easy to, get
We're back, everybody. Hello again. We are 5 minutes into qualifying with Dasher currently at the top of the timing charts on a 1:16.0. We don't know how much of the waffle you were able to hear from earlier. Yet to see from Cameron Searle out on the circuit, but this is Mexico City. We have Dasher from Woolly Blob separated by just 0.02 of a second, and Geek in the Mercedes also within 1/10 of a second of the current provisional pole man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dasher is already setting the pace already early on with that 116 as well. I think we'll definitely see some improvements though, having been only just 12 minutes left to go, and a lot of people are in their first laps. As you know, typically with shaking off the dust after racing for a couple of times, people will definitely seem to get faster. But all in all, Tom, this is getting quite impressive that the fact we're already getting near 115s in just the first attempts.
100%, yeah, acclimatising to the track very, very nicely. It's such a lovely flowing circuit, especially that middle section of the track limits, I think could catch quite a few people out. Here is one of the McLarens coming around the final corner, though it's not the most competitive of times. We're sort of backing off in the final stadium sector, and a 2-minute 0.8 isn't going to get you particularly high on the grid. As you can see from the timing tower on the left-hand side, the top 6 familiar names to everybody else, along with Cameron Stell, BB Joe down the bottom in the Aston Martin, and Quixotico and Zizi as well. But there are some new faces on the grid looking to stamp their mark in the BUSR for the very first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how he'll familiarize himself over in with the grid of already experienced drivers. But, you know, it's still only going to be the first race. And as the times goes on, he'll show his craft more and more. You could just see there from last gen, he just slides a little bit before that double hairpin as well. Josh Woolley does improve though, and it's our first 1:15.9. I think he's beaten last year's full time of Geek.
Yeah, already eclipsed that time from Geek, who currently sits in 3rd position. Formerly Willie Blobs, now Josh Woolley alongside Cameron Sell, 2 drivers that have changed their name recently to their full name. A little bit more official. Still watching the McLaren of last gen new coming through the stadium section, backed off in this particular part of the track last time around. Can he try and challenge potentially to get inside the top 10 with his first representative run of the session? Short run to the line. It's a very competitive lap, it has to be said. 16.4, so it's just in front of Aria and the 2 Williams cars.
Really good there from last gen, actually, for 116.4. You can just see he depleted almost all of the ERS, and I don't think it was quite the optimal line coming out the last sector, but it was all really good for him. As we see, the Alpine of Quicks goes to 9th. Pretty good from him, and a new good showing for him as he beats his teammate of Reese.
Yeah, the 2 Alpines just hovering inside the top 10. They're in 9th and 10th, 17.1 and 17.3 respectively for the pair of them. Here's BB Aggie in the Ferrari. His teammate currently holding down 2nd place Dasher. A few moments ago was the provisional pole. It's a little bit of traffic in this final sector coming up through the Piratella, although that Aston Martin is going to pull into the pits. Are we taking the short run to the line? We are with BB Aggie. What is it? It's position number 7. Another driver into the 16s. Joe smashes the benchmark though by a couple of tenths, 15.7.
Jesus, really impressive there from Joe. 2 tenths faster than Josh Woolley. Really good showing there for him as he's trying to capitalize on his. He's trying to always try to shift in stuff in his way, right? He's always been one of the best qualifiers that we have on the grid, right? And he's actually taken pole position away from Cameron a couple of times as well in the past. So he's hoping this will be no other, and that will really set the tone for the season. Whether he can keep it there is another question as So crosses the line.
Well, straight to the top, assuming that familiar place that Cameron Sir has become so used to. Just by a couple of tenths, 15.5, smashing now that time that we saw take pole position 12 months ago. Here's Mad Dog, only up by 400ths through the first sector in that Williams car and had a little bit of traffic to deal with. Currently sat on a 16.5. We'll be looking to take probably half a second out of that and challenge those drivers in the high 1 minute 15s.
Yeah, I'm trying to look because of this Silverstone sticker here. So from Geek, Dasher, Joe, Josh, and Cameron that aren't allowed. Last gen, I think, will probably get it at this rate, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, as it stands, it would be last gen new in that 2nd McLaren. Here is Mad Dog coming through the Piratella now, holding 8th position, as we said. Door size, I believe that is, up into 9th place in the Mercedes. What can the Williams do? Finds just under a couple of tenths and is a 16.3 to move up into 6th place.
Really good there. Displaced last gen over for 6th. It's a very important 6th actually at the moment, considering if that front pack moves away from the start, you could just see like how much of a difference it is between Geek and Mad Dog. 3 tenths, and that's going to be even more amplified come the race, I believe. It's really important for Mad Dog to get 6, and he's done it. Really impressive from him.
100%, yeah. Coming up towards the business end of the qualifying session into the second half, Dasher going again provisionally on pole a couple of minutes ago with that 16.002 has been bumped down, now nearly half a second off the ultimate pace, and only finding 300ths through the first sector.
Yeah, 100%. And out he comes out for the double hairpin now. Is just trying to find that optimum line as much as he can now, and then trying to use all the throw there. And that was really close for comfort there for the Aston Martin almost. Nearly had a heart attack there.
Absolutely, yeah. Still Dasher swinging it through these beautiful S's off the middle sector. Has he found any more time? The Alfa Romeo, not Sauber, getting out of the way. Again, not finding a lot of time. Only a 10th up through the first couple of sectors and very close to invalidating. Going up through the very treacherous, indeed, it has to be said, turn number 12. If you get that wrong, you can just get dragged out into that wall on the left-hand side, courtesy of those curves. Are we going to see the short run to the line out of the final corner? Yes, we are all the way over to the right-hand side and does find another 10th and a half in the final sector to move on to the front row with a 15.7.
That was really impressive there from Dash as well. You could just see from that final sector how much he was pushing and how close to the wall he was. He nearly invalidated his lap, as you said earlier on, but it's that risk that reaps so much reward for Dasher, and he'll be very proud with that second place at the moment.
100%. Ender Epic in the Haas. One of the new faces on the grid, currently on a 16.7, and has laid down a fairly decent benchmark early in this session, it has to be said. Swinging it through the S's, as we've seen a few drivers doing so far. That red light flashing at the back of the car saying that there's not a lot of ERS left and is down by 1.1 seconds. So this must be a back off and go again run coming through turn number 12 there.
Yeah, definitely. Just going through that final sector as well, just pushing as much as he possibly can. Cyril does improve for the 15.51, but meanwhile for Ender, he's probably going to head into the pits. I think he did something wrong on the second sector, if I'm not mistaken, and he'll probably have a go again with 5 minutes left to go.
Definitely there, and like you said as well, Carousel lowering the benchmark by a couple of hundredths on the same set of tyres, so a fairly ominous warning for a lot of drivers in the race. Here is Ari in the AlphaTauri with a couple of drivers to get out of the way, unable to get a meaningful slipstream on the run down into turn number 1. I think the AlphaTauri is actually going to pull out of the way of the Ferrari behind.
Yeah, I think that might be Dasher from this. No, it's Bibiaghi down in 16.735. I don't think he's ever been that low in the previous and last season, if I'm not mistaken. He's usually always been more or less lower midfield, and down in 13th is, oh no, it's quite interesting to see from him. I wonder if he'll be able to improve around this time round. Area living in through, so this is obviously going to be a very fast lap for the Ferrari. But with Dasher all the way up in second, it's going to be quite a momentous challenge for him to make up half of that.
What we should say as well, yeah, sorry just cutting there, but what we should say as well is the field spread is a lot tighter than we usually see in the BUSR. So this is very encouraging for a lot of drivers battling for potentially some decent points paying positions. The gap from Cameron Searle in first down to what is Bibiaghi in 13th, only 1.2 seconds.
Yeah, and this does show like how good of a talent pool the BSUR has for this winter championship, because it almost seems like untouchable a couple of seasons back, but now the fact that we're getting more and more drivers now and are perfecting more and more of their craft throughout the summer and now heading into the winter now, it just shows like how much of a competitive season we can look forward to this season.
100%. Geek coming out with 4 minutes to go on what is his second set of soft compound tyres. Got to remember the tyre strategies that we have to be thinking about. You get 3 sets of soft compound tyres that you can use in qualifying, but if you use all of them, you won't get any fresh sets for the race. So I think a lot of drivers will be preserving that 1 set of soft compound tyres, going for 2 fast runs in this session and maybe using their first set of tyres for a couple of laps, as we saw Cameron Searle doing 2 fine laps on his first set of tyres and managing to improve by a couple of hundredths on that second attempt.
He slowed down. I think he's letting his door size pass through. I think he must have messed up a bit. I don't think he'll be able to set another fast time, so I think that might be it for Geek, I'm afraid. I
think he is on an out lap.
You think he is? Fair enough. My apologies then.
I think he is just... Oh, and that's door size nearly. Well, he does throw it into the wall there. Invalidated on the exit of turn number 12. Very difficult corner indeed. And then a little bit too over-ambitious on the throttle, trying to make up for lost time and almost spearing it directly into the barrier and ruining what was looking like a pretty decent lap. Had found a couple of tenths of a second, but returning to the pits. That is probably his race run.
Yeah, that does show like how punishing that final sector is, and I'm sure he's not the only one that has suffered from the wrath of that stadium sector heading into the last two corners. I think for the other drivers as well, to be aware of the gerbs and not be too greedy is going to be the key to achieve the best place that you possibly can. Geek, meanwhile, is going to start his flying lap, as I mistakenly said he was having his flying lap the lap previous. My apologies.
Yeah, this is the crunch moment for Geek. Only a couple of minutes left to go in the session, but he's down by a couple of tenths through the first sector. Will he back off on this run, try and recharge the battery and go again? Or does he think he can try and make up that time in the middle sector? He's half a second down on Cameron Searle's time at the moment. And, well, he needs to pull a rabbit out of a hat in the middle and final sector.
He really does, but as you know with Dasher as well, we thought it was all and over for him, but he managed to prove and got his way up to provisional second. Josh really displaces him and gets up into second now.
Yeah, good lap from Wooly there, just over a tenth off the back of his former teammate Cameron Searle. Geek did improve in the middle sector, but still down by a third of a tenth. Needs to have a sterling final sector if he's going to find any meaningful time and positions, because the gap to the driver in front, Joe, is 3/10 per second, so he could be consigning himself to fifth place at best. Bit of a wobble coming out of the final corner. The Piratella doesn't use the short run to the line, and it's only a 16.3. Horrible lap.
2/10 slower. It was that wobble that just ruined any chance of him ever improving that lap, and it was probably too far ahead for him to achieve, and fifth is probably the best that he can possibly do. Meanwhile, for Last Gen Knew It, though, he's coming out for the final corner. Is it going to be an improvement for him? It's a massive improvement for him. He gets up into provisional sixth.
Impressive time there from the second Papaya car. 16.1 to go in position number 6. Still a few drivers left to go. A lot of drivers on their out lap. So that's probably the final lap we're going to see from Last Gen New in this session. We're waiting for the likes of Cameron Searle, Dasher, Joe to go for another run at the end of this session. That second McLaren, the Ferrari and the Aston Martin that has just cut the beam to go for one final time in this qualifying session.
Yeah, absolutely. The checker flag should be dropping very soon. We've only got 45 seconds left to go, so it's going to be really, really interesting to see what drivers can do, especially in the traffic. You can see on the mini map as well that you need to make sure that through that dirty air, especially for the final sector, that doesn't catch you out. As Ender Epic goes a bit wide, I think that might be his lap invalidated, I think.
Oh, I don't quite think so. The track map in the bottom right hasn't turned red, so I think he is still able to go again. Josh Woolley cutting over the chicane at the stadium section to try and give himself another opportunity of going again in this session. He's going to get a lovely slipstream from the Ferrari in front of him. I think only 30 seconds to go. Cameron Searle does make it round to start a lap. Only 10 seconds to go, so the McLaren cutting it a little bit fine here, and these are the laps that are going to count for everybody.
Yeah, you can see, just look at the mini-map. Look how chaotic it is. It's gonna, if one of them ever makes a mistake, I think that's going to ruin everyone else's. Reese finishes up in 7th. He's the first of the finishers now. Mad Dog will be behind him. He's gonna try and see if he can go above. Last Gen has retired. I wonder what's happened there. Mad Dog couldn't improve, so Reese, I think, has got 7th safe in his hands.
Joe onto the front row, found nearly a couple of tenths of a second to go into position number 2, but still 800ths shy of Cameron Searle. Here's Dasher down by a couple of hundredths, stays down, or improves by a couple of hundredths, sorry, but stays in position number 4. ZZ up by a couple of tenths through the first couple of sectors. Can he get out of 17th and not take the wooden spoon? Well, he's up to 14th for the time being on a 16.9. Who's next? Is Alpha over the line from 11th up to 10th, finding a third of a tenth of a second. Who do we wait for now? Geek is down by 3,000ths. Door size, that's not the run you want to be taking round the final corner. A bit of a messy session for the Mercedes that did promise a decent amount, ends in only 12th place. So we're waiting for BB Aggie, Josh Woolley, Geek as well. Chaotic jumps up into 14th, finding half a second there. Lemon Track and Quixotical left. Cameron Searle is invalidated. He will stay in first position, and only Woolley, Blobs and Geek can try and take it away from the reigning champion.
Yeah, Kurtzgo improves only to 17.03, and I think we're just waiting on Lemon to see if he can improve now. There he comes now, entering through the final two corners now. Can he get himself out of 16th position and push the Alfa Romeo any more up?
Oh, no. Stays in 16th, but doesn't take home the wooden spoon. That is Quixotical in the Alpine on a 17.0, but that is our qualifying session done. And as usual, it is Cameron Searle kicking off where he left off last season with pole position.
Indeed, but he didn't hold it in comfortably though. Remember, he was still within around 800ths. He held on to that pole position away from second place. So if anything, it does show that he has managed to show improvement But however, everyone around him has improved just as much, and Cameron Sewell's dominance is not looking that sure.
100%. Very competitive, especially at the sharp end, which does bode for a very exciting Mexican Grand Prix to kick off this BUSR season. In the little interlude we've got between qualifying and the race, we're going to show you what special effect do to support people in the gaming community.
Nobody likes being left out. That's why Special Effect are helping people with physical disabilities to play video games. But this isn't just about having fun. The gaming setups we create are personalised, so people can play to the very best of their abilities. And that opens the door to inclusion and independence, confidence and creativity. Help us level the playing field and create more magical gaming moments. Because it's everyone's turn to play.
A fantastic organisation, I'm sure you can agree. And here at the BUSR, we are very proud to support and be supported by Special Effect. We've heard from the weathermen out there in Mexico City that the rain has not come to play. It will be a dry race, at least for the very beginning. What tyres do you think people are going to start on? What do you think the favoured compound for our drivers will be?
If they still have it, I think soft will just be the best option for them, because at the start you have that long straight, it'll just set the pace up as quickly as possibly can, and it's kind of a no-brainer, I feel. But for the people that want to hold off and push until the end, they'll probably maybe start on the mediums instead. But I think, any tire, I think, is completely feasible here, because it's all dependent on the safety car. I think we're bound to have a safety car given the nature and the situation of this track, and considering like the mistakes that we've seen here in qualifying, I think it might be the case.
100%. I think the medium probably will be the better race tyre, but for those drivers trying to make up places in the opening salvo of the race, the soft tyre is definitely an option. And I think a lot of drivers did save a set of the red stripe soft compound tyres as well.
Yeah. So tire choice is really going to be incredibly important here. All of them are going to have different strategies for how they're going to tackle this race. For some of them, as we've seen before here in the qualifying, that didn't use all their soft compounds, they're really saving the softs to be in its prime optimal condition so they can use it to their fullest for the race.
100%. And like you said as well, strategy is going to be absolutely fascinating in this race. If we do see safety cars, which we are absolutely expecting, especially with a lot of new faces on the grid.
Yep, and considering our last year's as well, having that many safety cars as well and being that chaotic as well, I can't see how it cannot be chaotic as well. Not to mention it is the first race of the season after all.
Predictions? Who do you think is going to win this race, Amir?
Searle.
Oh, Cameron Searle. That is a very solid prediction, I would have to say. I think Cameron Searle is definitely the favourite going in. But like you said, it's not quite as dominant as we perhaps thought it would have been. We've seen qualifying sessions where only a couple of drivers have been within a second of Cameron Searle. We had a couple within a tenth nearly.
Yeah, and now for this one here, he managed to squeeze it just by 100th. So the margins are getting even closer. But given his previous successes on, being in such close qualifying positions and then managing to extract dominance just from the unsureness of the qualifying, and his race victories might be at stake. It's kind of hard to dispute how he can't win, in my opinion. But who do you think will win, Tom?
I've got to go with Cameron Searle as well. He is the dominant figure in the BUSR, but I think we could be in for a really good race. Geek didn't really get a clean lap in. Mad Dog's usually got some decent pace. He was only down in 8th place. I think the winner of the prize, I believe, is last gen new in that second McLaren, starting from position number 6.
Yeah, he did. I think he has. Yeah, he really has won. I think, but he was really close as well to I think Joe as well. Even though that he didn't set a clean lap in the end, but he was still very, very close. And it's going to be interesting to see that if last gen knew it and the people behind him can, with the DRS trade, continue to trail behind that leading pack that we're expecting.
100%. As everybody on the formation app lining up, it is the spectator or broadcast formation app, so nobody actually driving it, which means nobody's going to invalidate their grid spot and nobody parking poorly. But we are getting ready to go for another season of the BUSR. This time it's the Winter Series around Mexico City. 5 red lights. Cameron Searle and Joe on the front row. We are underway for the first round of the BUSR Winter Series. Even Steven start for the front two, but Willie Blobs has had an absolute shocker and loses out to Dasher straight away. And Dasher in the Ferrari coming like an Exocet missile up the inside from 4th up into 2nd, potentially the lead. But Cameron Searle looking comfortable, and there's a big gaggle of cars behind the Mercedes of Geek trying his best to get involved. Joe being swamped down into turn 1, started on the front row, battling just to hold on to 4th place, let alone 5th with the 2nd McLaren and last gen new. And there is a Williams backwards and a Ferrari BB Aggie clattering in to the backwards Mad Dog.
Yeah, I think that's Mad Dog away. He started from 7th all the way down to 16th now. I think his collision with BB Yagi has caused some damage to him as well. But you could just see, like, there was a lot of people that were just excessive at going out track. We've had a safety car now in lap 1.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Mad Dog who got spun around, not quite sure who it was, and then somehow it was only one driver that clattered into the stationary backwards Williams of Mad Dog. That was unfortunately for them, BB Aggie in the Ferrari, and is the first retiree of the BUSR Winter Series. But it is Cameron Searle who maintained the lead out in front. But the battle behind was absolute carnage. Joe going from 2nd down to 5th, then getting back ahead of his old sparring partner Geek. Dasher and Willie Blobs, though, filing through.
Yeah. It's unfortunate for Searle, though, because he had the dream start of a lifetime. The fact Dasher, Joe, and Josh were just battling out amongst one another, and he had the clear lead ahead. But now all that has been nullified now, and now it's a safety car restart, which is... he's had more troubles with the safety car restart than he has with grids, if I'm not mistaken. He has lost the lead in a situation like this before in the Summer Championship. So whether it'll be the same again is something up for debate.
100%. An Alpha in the Williams peeling off into the pit. So I wonder if it was the 2 Williams cars that came to blows on the opening lap. Was on the medium compound tyres. You don't really want to be getting rid of them. And yes, there is a front wing change. So it would have been the 2 teammates tangling.
Yeah, I think it is. That's very unfortunate. I don't think James Vowles will be very proud of that, would he?
Absolutely not. And yeah, James Vowles can be disappointed with what his 2 drivers have come up with, because they're now 15th and 16th. Cameron Searle, though, we spoke a little bit about it just then. He'll be delighted to hang on to the lead, but the problem is he's got to do it all over again. And Dasher got an absolutely outstanding start and could potentially challenge that McLaren on the very long run down into turn 1 when the safety car files into the pits.
Yeah, Dasher's start really, really surprised me. I was absolutely surprised how quick he was off the line and managed to beat Josh over for P2. And he managed to hold it and keep his nerve despite all the calamity that was going on to the side of him and behind him as well in that first lap as well. His focus was only on Searle, and as a result, he only managed to get 2nd. So if he can have another good start again, there's a possibility Searle will not be able to hold on to that lead for much longer.
Absolutely. If we can get the tyres up for all the drivers as well, we can see Cameron Searle's on the softs. Are those hard tyres for Dasher and hard tyres for Joe as well? So we do have a big split in the leading group. That makes Dasher's start even more impressive and probably explains a little bit why Joe went backwards. Alpha on the hard tyres coming into the pits as well. So split out in front. Surprisingly, none of the leading contenders favouring those yellow stripe medium tyres.
Maybe they know something more than we do, I wonder, Tom.
Absolutely, yeah. They are the experts at the end of the day. We are just the commentators.
Sadly.
Sadly, yes, very much so. But that probably means Cameron Searle might be a little bit more comfortable than we thought on the restart, because those white striped hard tyres are going to be very, very cold indeed by the time the safety car comes into the pits. That could also leave Joe vulnerable to his old sparring partner Geek and potentially the 2nd McLaren of last gen Newt, who has made quite the impression so far on their BUSR debut, qualifying in the top 6 and doing very well to hold station ahead of some more established faces like Aria and Mad Dog as well, who was caught up in that kerfuffle that we saw on the opening lap. But Mad Dog has actually come into the pits again, or for the first time, sorry, again for the Williams team, making a stop and putting on the hard tyres, as did his teammate.
I wonder if Mad Dog as well had probably repairs as well he had to do as well, which is why he had to switch for tyres, but that I'm not entirely know for sure. However, for last gen Newt though, he is still behind Geek and the established, the more established front runners as well. So upon the safety car restart as well, DRS will be activated in about 1 lap or 2 laps or so. So for last gen, he'll need to trail back to Geek and Joe as much as he possibly can, and if possible, he'll maybe be able to even challenge for the podium places, perhaps. And what a way to make an established debut by scoring on the podium.
100%, yeah, and a lot of other drivers did very, very well indeed to stay out of trouble with the backwards Mad Dog. Well, I mean, just planted in the middle of the circuit, but the safety car is in, and we are going to get ready to go racing once again with Cameron Searle leading Dasher, Josh, Willie, Joe, and Geek, the 5 contenders. We imagine we'll be battling it out for the race victory, but who knows what could happen here in Mexico City. We've already had one of our 5 designated safety cars. I wonder when the next one is going to come. Safety cars breed safety cars, of course. The McLaren, Cameron Searle, backing everybody up. You would imagine he wants to go as late as possible to minimise the opportunity for Dasher to slipstream and down into turn number 1, but he's gone, coming round the final corner, and that could leave him a little bit vulnerable if that Ferrari is running slightly lower wings. We've got a Red Bull Chaotic going backwards. I think he may have spun coming out of the final corner, and Dasher, he's not on the move. It's actually Willie Blobs on those soft compound tyres, sniffing around the rear of the Scuderia Ferrari car down into turn number 1. Can he find the gap around the outside? He's got more grip, and he's got more confidence as well. He goes straight around the outside of Dasher, but I think he's going to get run out of road. A little bit of wheel banging going on involved, and they're going to drag race it again up the hill into turns number 4 and 5. Dasher just holding on to second place for the time being. Can the AlphaTauri continue to mess with the plans of this Scarlet Ferrari car, chopping in front of the AlphaTauri, and Josh Woolley losing the opportunity to take second place. He's going to lose third place as well. Here comes Joe, nibbling at the heels of the AlphaTauri, opportunistic as ever.
God, he just cut him off, I think, and I think he was just startled a little bit by that as well. But Josh trying to take advantage of the soft tyres he has, but look at him, he's kind of fading. He's nearly dropping his way up to 5th. He's now battling with Geek now.
Terrible restart, yeah. Terrible restart. It's fallen from 2nd down into 5th. That could be sick. This is last NU being very opportunistic down into turn number 12, and Josh Woolley almost forced off the road and forced down a position. His teammate Arian now going around the outside into the stadium section. Shouldn't have the grip around there and does run out of road, and Willie Blobs going from 2nd temporarily down into 6th. What a terrible restart. Cameron Searle, though, has got nearly 3 seconds out in front. You don't need to give him any more of an advantage, but that's what they've done.
Yeah, wow, that was an overtake though by Last Gen Nuet though. That was really surprising as he continued, as Josh Willis just continues to fall more and more. Area overtakes him now for 6th. Wow, 2nd all the way down to 7th. That is quite surprising. As Aria meanwhile makes his position up to 5th as well. A double overtake on the main straight for him.
Storming through there is getting very out of shape coming out of the first chicane of turns 1, 2 and 3. This is Joe with the AlphaTauri out of the way. He has got a clear view to the Ferrari of Dasher in front. Still battles going on between the AlphaTauris and the McLaren of Last Gen Nuke. Just about enough space up the inside, but a bit of a wobble on the exit means he can't retake 5th position from the AlphaTauri of Arian. Will remain in that sandwich with Josh Woolley sat just underneath the rear wing of that Papaya car. 4 seconds now the lead for Cameron Searle, with Joe shouting every move that Dasher is pulling in 2nd and 3rd.
Goodness me, Jesus Christ, Cameron. 4 seconds in 2 laps of the restart. That is amazing. You can see as well from the line that he took on the restart. Oh god, that was really close there between Geek and Joe. Nearly collided over in that corner.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of previous, these two, Joe and Geek, on this race circuit as well. They were knocking 10 bells out of each other this time 12 months ago. That is very early for a 3-second corner cutting penalty for Josh Woolley, and that makes his life even harder. Already tumbled down into 7th and now has a significant handicap hanging over his head. But here we go, down into turn number 1. This is the opportunity for Joe to try and make a move on the Ferrari of Dasher. Josh Woolley not having his spirits dampened by picking up that penalty, because he's going to reclaim 6th position from the McLaren of Last Gen Nuke. Easy as you like down into turn number 1, although the Papaya McLaren very brave on the brakes and putting some manners on one of the more experienced heads in the BUSR, but it's just about going to run out of road as the Alpine in the background of Reese takes a trip into the grass.
Oh god, that is really unfortunate there from Reese. He's managed to get it back now onto the track. I don't think there'll be any need of a safety car though, at least, which is a bit of a disadvantage though for Reese. But wow, that was really, really close. Almost collected a few drivers with him as well. But yeah, Jesus.
Crucially out in front, Cameron Searle now 5 seconds clear. Dasher holding on to 2nd place for the time being. Those two in 2nd and 3rd, remember, on the hard compound tyres. Geek on the softs. He wants to get through those two as quickly as possible. He's got his best chance now, because look at how close they are, the 3 of them. Nose to tail in that final sector, and that could be a real opportunity with the helping hand of DRS down into the first chicane. This is still the McLaren of Last Gen New, who's getting stuck in with the AlphaTauris consistently in this race, all over the back of Willie Blobs, still in that battle for 6th and 7th 7th place. We've got to return to the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th, though, because they could be in a completely different order by the time we get down into turn number 1. With the DRS flap open for the first time in this race, Joe to the inside is going to take 2nd. Geek fancies his chances as well of maybe leading this train down into turn number 1. The Silver Arrow sending it up the inside, but just about gets cut off by Joe and the Aston Martin. Dasher from 2nd down into 4th as the 2 cars behind file through.
That's really, really huge there for Geek, though. He's on a different tire compared to Joe and Dasher, though. He knows Cameron Sill's pulling away because of the soft compound with Alpha getting 3 seconds time penalty. But the more that he just gets held up by these two, the less likely he is to able to catch up to Searle, and therefore his soft compound that he uses is gone. Joe and Dasher are running a different race. Joe and Dasher are running a different race than what Geek is at the moment.
Absolutely. And Aria in the AlphaTauri has cruised up to the back of this trio, making it a quartet, squabbling over 2nd down into 5th position with last gen Newt in that 2nd McLaren, 1.7 seconds off the back of them, with Willy Blob still all over the back of them as we've got a yellow flag in the middle sector. Not quite sure who it's for. I think we've got another Alpine facing the wrong way. Yes, it's Quixotical in a very dangerous position indeed, rearwards into the barrier. He's going to rejoin down in 15th position.
I think it must have gotten loose over from the curbs as well. We mentioned about the 2nd sector, about how squiggly it is and how hard it is to maintain the grip as well and not to lose traction. And he just shows how important it really is. He's already on a 3 second time penalty. So as we look back on the front now, Geek with his soft compound now has to make quick work of Joe. And despite their history that they have, Geek has to just pull away as much as he can now from Joe as possible. Otherwise, he's just going to lose that grip from his soft compounds.
Yeah, 8 laps are already going to be struggling slightly now. Wouldn't be surprised if Joe and Dasher are able to cling on to the coattails of that Mercedes car. Aria had a little look up the inside of Dasher into turn number 1, but thought better of it, remaining in 5th position. That gap back to the 2nd McLaren of last gen Newt, now 2.2 seconds. Willy Blobs just stuck behind the Papaya car with Ender Epic and Dorsize filing in the underneath the rear wing of that AlphaTauri in 8th and 9th position. Then it's a 3 second gap back to the 2 Williams, squabbling over 10th and 11th. And like I said, Joe is clinging onto the coattails of the Mercedes of Geeks. Actually, Dasher, who's struggling a little bit for pace at this stage of the race, close to dropping out of the DRS range of the pair in front. Joe will fancy his chance of potentially reclaiming 2nd place down into turn number 1.
Yeah, but you could just see, though, from Cyril and Geek, though, it's nearly coming up to 7 seconds now, and we're not even halfway through the race, and that's going to be a little bit worrying for Joe, who is still behind. Well, it's a little bit worrying for Geek, actually, who's on the soft compound, but you can just see in front now, they're going to trade places once again. The history that they had last year is rekindling once again. Joe overtakes Geek now, back up into 2nd, though.
Oh, that was an interesting dart over to the right-hand side from the other Mercedes of door size. Josh Willie finally disposes of the McLaren of last gen Newt. They could renew spoils, though, with the 2nd helping hand of DRS up into turns number 4 and 5. But I think the AlphaTauri is going to be comfortable. The battle is behind them, though, between the Haas and the Mercedes. Who's going to go where? It's around the outside for door size. Can he swing it all the way around the outside on those yellow stroke medium tyres? Yes, he can. And that is Ender Epic being relegated down into 9th position. Yeehaw around the outside. And that is position number 8 for the 2nd Mercedes.
Yeah, very beautiful take around the outside there from Dorsize to get himself up to 8th, and his possible chances of catching up to last gen Newt is still looking pretty likely, given that his pace has actually really improved, as last gen Newt is still trying his best to overtake Josh. Willie is it's not doing really good for him now. It's nearly coming up to 3 seconds behind him and his teammate, so that shows a bit of worry. We've got another yellow flag. I think that's the Williams.
Oh, I think it actually might be the Alpine of Reese Hans taking a trip off the road for the 2nd time in this race. Yes, it is the Alpine off into the grass and loses out to his teammate. And Geek, I think his tyres have hit the drop-off zone now because he's really struggling for pace. He's been reeled in at a rapid rate of knots by Dasher. He's going to make light work of the Mercedes down into turn number 1. Doesn't even need the braking zone. And it is now McLaren, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Mercedes, and then the 2 AlphaTauris. Geek, who was 2nd temporarily, now pushed back down into 4th.
This is quite the imagery, because it might mean that Cameron Sill's soft compound advantage is slowly depleting as well if Geek is already struggling in lap 10. So this is going to be quite something for Joe and Dasher to see if they can able to make up lost ground on Cameron from that safety car restart.
Absolutely. The gap out in front has stabilised, maybe come down a little bit. It's dipped back under 6 seconds, now back over. I think it's just dependent on where they are on the circuit. But Joe's got quite the mountain to climb if he's going to try and challenge Cameron Searle for the lead of this race. But for the next 3 or 4 laps, his tyres are certainly going to be better than the ones on that Papaya McLaren car. The two Williams continuing to battle it out over 10th and 11th. Alpha catching the Haas of Ender Epic in front. That gap is now just 2 seconds with Mad Dog trailing in hot pursuit.
I wonder if there'll be any positions, or if they'll be able to fight. If they look for the bigger picture, they'll know they'll be able to catch Ender together. However, given the first lap collision would possibly involve those two together, as we know they both had to pit for damages, I wonder if all that will be thrown out the window.
100%, yeah. And those soft tyres, at least for Cameron Searle, holding on pretty nicely. Geek still in the slipstream and the DRS range of Dash, but unable to make a move down into turn number 1. Last Gen New also on the soft tyres, I think struggling with them at this stage. Bit of a wobble, but Dorsize does move up into 7th, relegating the Papaya car down into 8th place. And the Haas of Ender Epic is going to be next on the list to try and attack that ailing McLaren car. And then is this pair, the two Williams, both involved in skirmishes on the opening laps. In this skirmish was between themselves, now 10th and 11th, 2 seconds off the back of the Haas. Mad Dog will be disappointed. He's got to try and get past his teammate though, because it looks like he's got a little bit more pace.
Yeah, he definitely is. He's by far the more capable driver, as we've seen performances from him many times before. He's been in situations like this, and this has been no exception. He's been known to capitalize on environments like this and managed to pull his weight, actually, despite in being positions like this. And so you may never know. This is kind of his calling now, and his best chance to show his talents would be here, and his first disposal will be that of his teammate, as Dorsaz actually gets his first 3-second time penalty.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing penalties handed out thick and fast. The gap out in front has started to decrease. 5.6 seconds now between Cameron Searle and Joe, though that is extending on the straight. Maybe Cameron Searle running slightly lower wings. Geek still shadowing every move of the Ferrari of Dasher. Is he close enough to potentially think about reclaiming third place down into turn 1? Yes, he is. Dasher doesn't defend it. Straight up the inside goes the Mercedes, and that is Geek back onto the podium. The Ferrari relegated back down. Ari still just about in the same ballpark as this pair, but struggling to just hang on to the back of them. And then the other AlphaTauri of Wooly a further 3 seconds off the back of that trio. This is Zizi, the first in to make a regulation stop from position number 13. Will drop behind the two Alpines and potentially the Red Bull. No, not the Red Bull of Chaotic.
I think this might open up the pit window as well, at least, as we can see Last Gen New just trying to go down around Dorsize, who still has the 3-second time penalty, as we mentioned earlier, but he needs to be sure he doesn't get a bit too much of Dorsize, because every field attempt he does, he's always under pressure from Ender behind. But he also knows, these two also know that the Williams are catching up behind them as well, so they need to make short disperse of Dorsize as much as they possibly can. The question is, how are they going to be able to do it?
Yeah, this could be a quintet battling over 7th position, which would be quite the scene indeed. Quixotical with a penalty, his second corner-cutting penalty of the race. We said on the previous lap that Joe was starting to take chunks of time out of Cameron Searle, but that is now back up comfortably over 6 seconds. And Dash has dropped off the back of Geek, so I wonder if the hard tyres have now reached the 25 percentage point on the tyre wear, and the balance of power shifting back in the favour of the drivers on the soft tyres, temporarily at least. This is the battle for 7th and 8th place. You said that Last Gen Nuke needs to get back past the Mercedes of Dorsize, and that is going to be very easy work down into turn number 1. Through goes the McLaren. Is Ender Epic thinking about a look up the inside? Not quite close enough.
No, he knows he's going to have another chance, though, coming for the second straight as well, with using the DRS as well. He also knows the Mercedes is also going to be a marked man as well.
100%, yeah, and they could start squabbling very, very hard indeed, with the two Williams cruising up to the back of them, making it officially a 5-car scrap, and that is something we love to see. 3-car scrap going on, because that is Geek still under pressure from Dasher, still under pressure from Aria. Josh Woolley doesn't seem to have the pace, maybe a little bit of damage that we haven't quite seen, because he was getting really stuck in the opening couple of laps after that terrible safety car restart, so maybe a little bit of front wing damage just affecting his pace at this stage. Here are the quintet battling over 7th behind the two AlphaTauri cars, and it's still Mad Dog right at the back of that snake. Yep,
this battle's going to feed families, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolute. Indeed, that is a perfect way of putting it, I have to say. But it looks like Alpha is the more racy of the Williams drivers, because all over the back of the Haas of Ender Epic was thinking potentially about a move up the inside into the stadium section of turn number 13, thinking better of it. But is he going to have to drive? Well, he doesn't need to pass the Haas, because Ender Epic files into the pit lane. Oh no, and he's got a penalty for speeding in the pits as well. Criminal stuff, 5-second penalty. Was desperate to get rid of those soft tyres, but was obviously too desperate because he entered the pit lane a little bit too quickly.
Yeah, it just could be in the heat of the moment with being in a 5-car battle, but he knows that's going to be that's the battle he's going to do now as he puts on these tires now, and his best bet now is to try and put on a stormer of a lap now to try and take back that 5-second disadvantage that he's had previously, although it's going to be quite a mountain of a task because 5 seconds is very hard to, make up.
100%. Could this be Williams' Civil War part number 2 as Mad Dog closing on his teammate Alpha? He's been very happy just to sit behind his teammate in the wake of his teammate for the previous 10 laps or so since the safety car came in. Is he now thinking about maybe trying to get a shift on? Got 1 lap fresher tyres. Alpha a little bit stuck at the moment behind the Mercedes of Dorsize and last gen Newt, having to catch up after the Haas of Ender Epic peeled off into the pits. This is the battle for 13th and 14th. It's easy under pressure from Reese Hans. I actually think the Aston Martin's just got past the Alpine, who's on very old medium tyres indeed. So Zizi up to 13th. Unlucky for some, it was unlucky for Reese because he ended up losing that position. Arias dropped out of DRS range of the pair in front, and this could be Dash's best opportunity to reclaim that spot on the podium with Elbing out of DRS and probably a little bit of battery. Red light flashing at the back of Geek Car, so he's not got any battery that he can deploy, and this should be easy pickings for the Scarlet car down into turn number 1, and the Silver Arias pushed back down into 4th place.
Yep, and I think that should probably be it for Geek now. I think the tires that he has now for the softs are just way too old in order to able to catch up into Dasher. The only advantage that he has now, which is why he's still in the back of him, is the ERS that he has saved up. But even so, it can't do miracles.
Absolutely, and look at the gap out in front also. 7.3 seconds as the Alfa Romeo of Lemon Track diving into the pits for a fresh set of boots. Those look like the medium tyres, I believe, in the shadows of the pit lane. It is the medium tyres. That's going to be a decent stint on those yellow stripe tyres, but we'll have some decent pace, you would imagine, on the fresh ones, trying to undercut a couple of drivers that were in front of him.
Yeah, you can see, I think that's the Red Bull as well. I think it's almost going to try and look to have a go at him on the first turn almost. But with the new tyres, I think it'll be very hard for the Red Bull to overtake the Kick-Sauber driver.
Yeah, spat out of the pit lane into the path of the Red Bull of Chaotic, who's already had 1 trip backwards in this race so far. And you would imagine the Alfa Romeo of Lemon Track is just going to cruise away from the Red Bull, who has been on those tyres for significantly longer after 16 laps. Who's that diving into the pits? Is that last gen Newt trying to get rid of those soft tyres? It is, but Josh Woolley was the driver we were looking at, and it's another criminal penalty for speeding into the pit lane. Desperate to get off the soft compound tyres, but he drove into the pit lane too quickly.
Oh, that's the second time we've had a speeding in the pit stop, so this is going to be very, very worrisome actually for Josh, given the position that he's in and in a tense fight that he is now. Last Gen just needs to make sure he keeps his nose clean, and he'll be able to get Josh's position. And Enders, he's actually in a very good position at the minute, actually, with both of the people ahead of him having 8 seconds of penalties. It's going to be easy to get through.
Yeah, and Ender with an undercut has managed to pull 3 seconds on last gen Newton, sat right underneath the rear wing of the Alpha Tauri, and that might just spook a couple of the drivers out in front, because if the undercut is that powerful, I think we could be seeing those soft runners into the pits any time now.
Yeah, I wonder. I just trying to wonder how soon Suro or Geek will pit. Because surely they must have looked at it now and they can know that the undercut's the best strategy. So they know if they just pit, they know if they pit now, they'll be able to take the advantage of it when they can.
100%, yeah. Carousel not electing to come into the pits. We'll have to wait and see what Geek can do in the Mercedes. Not going for an undercut either. He stays out with Arias still in the DRS range of this pair as well. But Dasher 3 seconds off the back of the Aston Martin of Joe's in a little bit of no man's land. Did get that gap down to 5.5 seconds. Now 7.5.
God, and Dasher and Joe is a 3-second difference between them, despite being on effectively the same strategy and effectively on the same car. It's quite a staggering difference. It just shows like how much Geek has been all over the back of Dasher, and how hard it was for Dasher to pass Geek, and it's really hindered his progress so much. Area, meanwhile, despite saying that he's fallen off, has actually managed to catch up into Geek, which shows he's managing his tires a lot better than Geek has.
Yeah, I think Geek was pushing very hard early on to try and get ahead of the Aston Martin of Joe and potentially close up to the back of Cameron Sell, but paying the price for that now as Reese hands into the pits to get rid of those medium tyres, putting on the white stripe hard tyres to go to the end, you would imagine, unless we see a safety car, which we haven't seen for quite some time, which is unusual in the BUSR, especially around Mexico. Look at this little battle shaping up. Alfa has managed to get ahead of Dorsize and the second Williams all over the back of that Mercedes. Could be a matter of time before Mad Dog is through, although with the helping hand of DRS, Dorsize could retake Alfa down into turn number 1, despite running wide there through turn number 12.
He's got the much stronger compound as well, but I wonder just how much life he has in him left. As we exit out for the final sector, I think Mad Dog might be able to overtake Dorsize if I'm not mistaken. He is a lot closer now, and I think Alfa is definitely pulling away.
Soft runners into the pits. Cameron Searle, Geek and Aria all into pit road. Alfa from Dorsize, from Mad Dog. What order are they going to be? And Cameron Searle's been spat out of the pit lane right into the path of them, though. There's McLaren having to race the Williams of Alfa down into turns 1 and 2. Just about gets ahead of them, and that will certainly not compromise his race. And he'll be delighted to see that. Could leave Alfa a little bit vulnerable coming out of it, though, and it's actually his teammate in the other Williams that's challenging the Mercedes of Dorsize down into turns number 4 and 5. Will he swing it around the outside? Yes. Who's going to be braver on the brakes? It's Mad Dog. Look at the grip that he's got over the Mercedes on those hard compound tyres compared to the mediums of the Silver Arrow, and makes light work of Dorsize.
Yeah, there's not much that Dorsize can do. That Williams just has the much better tyres than Dorsize ever can imagine, and have that grip as well. So it's going to be unfortunate for him, but despite he did put a really good fight actually to hold off the Williams as much as he can. Should be a time to pit now.
100%, yeah. Cameron Searle coming out 9 seconds off the back of Dasher. Geek coming out 8 seconds off the back of his teammate, with Josh Woolley now only half a second off the back of that second Mercedes. And Aria will be looking to get past his teammate shortly as well. Ender Epic with another penalty. Will Joe and Dasher stay out? Yes, they do. So Cameron Searle's going to be closing hand over fist. And we could see, well, I thought we were going to see some potential Williams squabbles down into turn number 1, but it's Alfa peeling off into the pits along with the Mercedes door side.
Yeah, so that means that I think Alfa and Dorsize are both going to be on the much better strategy than Mad Dog will. So Mad Dog has quite another mountain as well to climb for him already, given his misfortunes at the start already. But as I've mentioned before, given how capable of a driver he is, I think he'll be more or less ready to put the work in that. However, I wonder how much for Dorsize and Alfa they'll be able to climb up, and how much Mad Dog will have to recover from that.
Absolutely, yeah. Geek will be desperate, meanwhile, to try and get past Josh Woolley. Behind them is the McLaren and the Haas continuing to renew spoils of last Gen U and Ender Epic. And this time, it's the McLaren taking the high road around the outside and relegating Ender Epic down into 9th position.
Kind of like the reverse from what happened a few laps back.
Yes.
Nice good there from last Gen U.
Lovely little move around the outside. Clearly got a lot of confidence in that Papaya car to push the Haas down into 9th position, as I said. And 11 seconds of penalties for Ender Epic. I think he's going to fall even further outside of the top 10. Geek still all over the back of Woolly Blobs at this stage of the race. Be desperate to get through Cameron Searle on those medium tyres that he put on a couple of laps ago, with the fastest lap of the race by a country mile. And he's half the gap between himself and Dasher. So quick on those brand new tyres. Joe's pace continues to be solid, if unspectacular, out in front, maintaining the gap between himself and Dash of just over 4 seconds. This could be Geek's opportunity to relegate Woolly Blobs down into 6th position and get back ahead of that AlphaTauri, exit the AlphaTauri sandwich, and that is exactly what he's going to do. Returns to the top 5.
He's done it, definitely. He's done it way before the braking zone, and hopefully his best chance now is to pull away with the use of the DRS that he has. He is by far in a really good position now to maintain that 5th position now. With Mad Dog as well coming into the pits as well, that's going to push him up into provisional 2nd.
And a mistake from Aria as well, dropped to 2.5 seconds off the back of his teammate, with last Gen U not that far away. So Aria could be under pressure potentially from the McLaren if he can't recover the tyres after what I can only imagine was maybe a lockup or a little bit of a whoopsie on the exit of one of these slow speed corners. Here is Alfa, who came out of the pits recently and all over the back of the Aston Martin of Zizi, but that is not a regulation place to make an overtake. He's going to have to wait until at least turn number 12, but more likely down into turn number 1.
Yeah, it's going to hold him back a lot, and, it's not going to let him get the optimal outlap, or a couple of outlaps that he'll have to effectively make that undercut work. And the Aston Martin is actually going to try and fight with him now, coming in for the 3rd section, and does hold off from Alfa, which is really surprising. That was really good defending actually there from Zizi. But however, from the second sectors, he does have the inside line, which is really optimal. Alpha up into 10th. Really good battle there.
Absolutely. Zizi rolling out the red carpet through the Piratella, realising that there was no real point in fighting Alpha too hard, and relinquishes 10th position to the Williams. Next up is going to be Doorside to try and push the Aston Martin further down the pack. The other Aston Martin continues to lead the way, although Cameron Searle has cruised up to the back of Dasher. It's only going to be a matter of time before the Ferrari is kicked back behind the McLaren of Cameron Searle.
I'm kind of surprised. I think Mad Dog has not yet pitted yet, and it used to be 5 or 6 seconds now between him and Geek, and now it's down to 2 seconds now. So if the way that keeps going up, Geek is going to be all the back of Mad Dog. I just wonder if there's going to be any situation between Mad Dog and Geek.
I think Mad Dog probably goal hanging for a safety car at this stage. He pitted under the very first one for those hard compound tyres that he has still got on the car. But as every lap goes by and the safety car doesn't come out, it's going to be difficult for him to try and extend that stint all the way to the end of the race. So best of luck to him, but I think he could be having a painful next 14 laps of this Grand Prix. He doesn't actually have the DRS of the Williams in front. Could be a little bit vulnerable to the AlphaTauri of Josh Woolley behind, who has managed to refine his form after a very difficult first half of this race. Is now once again challenging the Mercedes down into turn number 1, using the slipstream, the DRS, maybe a bit of battery, but is not interested in sending it up the inside, and retains 6th position for the time being. Aria continuing to struggle a little bit, not got the pace of this pair at the moment. 3.5 seconds now the gap between the AlphaTauri teammates.
It's definitely Mad Dog, I think, that Josh Woolley has realised. He knows that if he just holds off for now, that Mad Dog may be able to cause a bit of trouble to Geek, and maybe that's why he's holding off a little bit, actually. But you can see Mad Dog as well, the tyres are just nowhere to be found, nowhere to be seen, and that grip and that Williams is probably abysmal right now. It's honestly a surprise how he managed to keep on track. But look how much Josh has managed to gain, though, just because Geek didn't manage to overtake, though. And it's that second sector as well, which is really hard to find an overtaking opportunity.
100%. Geek needs to get a shift on here, and this could be his opportunity. Darting out to the right-hand side to make a move on 4th place. Mad Dog, and does relegate the Williams down into 5th place. Got to keep it within the track limits. Mad Dog trying a little bit of a switchback on the exit. Gets a bit wobbly to boot as well, but does drop down to 5th place, but will have the helping hand of DRS down into turn number 1 if he can stick like glue to the gearbox of the Mercedes. But Geek putting distance between himself and the Williams now, should be comfortable. It's all going to be about defence once again for Mad Dog, because Josh Woolley all in the rear view mirrors. I think it's going to be only a matter of time before the Williams drops another place, as Dasher is into the pits for the one and only time.
Yeah, it's his scheduled stop now. He held off his pits for a very long time, so it's going to be interesting to see where he comes out from. Mad Dog can just, not do much really against Josh Woolley, but Josh Woolley, look how much he did from just not holding back against Geek, though. Like, he's now even more closer now behind him, and he might be able to overtake him now for 3rd.
We're in a situation as well where Cameron Searle might win this Grand Prix by over 20 seconds. He's caught up to the back of Joe, who is still yet to pit in this race. Dasher has come out in 8th place after going long. Here is Cameron Searle trying to get the lead back. Joe has not got anything to fight with at all. Waves the white flag for the reigning champion. The Papaya car files through to reclaim the lead of the race. Joe surely is going to be coming into the pits at the end of this lap. But Dasher going for that long first stint on hard tyres. He's come out in 8th place. He's going to have to pass Last Gen U, Aria, Mad Dog, Josh Woolley and Geek if he's going to return to the position that he was in before he made the pit stop.
Yeah, and he's only going to do that with only like 12 laps to go. I'm sorry, but the fact that you said Searle might win by 20 seconds just makes me depressed.
Shows the talent that he possesses, though. That is something that we have to praise him on. The reigning champion starting as it means to go on, as long as we don't see any disconnections. He's going to be in fine form. Mad Dog finally decides to get rid of those hard compound tyres, jumping into the pits. 3 positions for Aria, Last Gen, Nuke, Dasher and Et out behind, and Mad Dog probably going to come out in around 12th position behind Zizi in the Aston Martin. Has got a little bit of a job to do to try and get back up into the top 10.
Fresher tyres, though. Much fresher tyres. 12 laps to go. And he's only 3 seconds behind Yeezy and 5 seconds behind Doorsize. So I think he's more likely able to catch that up in the final closing stages of the race. And who knows, if Alpha can struggle a bit, maybe Mad Dog can maybe get his revenge on the first lap calamity with his teammate, perhaps.
100%, yeah. Joe leaving this very late to come in, by the way. He must be going for a set of soft compound tyres. If he doesn't come in on this lap, he might even be behind Dasher when that Aston Martin finally gets rid of those very aging medium tyres. Josh Woolley has done a very good job indeed to stay glued to the back of the Mercedes of Geek and could potentially be challenging for what would be second place on the road. Obviously, those penalties are going to kick him off the podium eventually, but he's done a really good job to keep his head and recover well in this race. Joe indeed does pull off into the pits. We'll have to wait and see where he comes out. Will he be behind the Ferrari or in front of him? We'll have to wait and see in 20 seconds time. This is Josh Woolley's best chance in the last couple of laps, though, to relegate Geek down a position. I think he's going to make mincemeat of the Mercedes and push him down into third.
Back down to the position where he was at the safety car restart now. It's taken him a very long time, but 21 laps later, he's managed to finally claw his way back up.
And Joe will be absolutely delighted that he's not just ahead of Dasher, but he's ahead of the McLaren of last-gen Newt as well. That's one less car he has to overtake in his attempts to try and get back up into second position and chase after his old sparring partner Geek, who is 5 and a bit seconds up the road with just over 11 laps remaining.
Joe is still, though, between Arya and last-gen Newt, though. And despite Arya's struggles with the tyres, though, he has done really good showing to be in fourth currently at the moment. But from last-gen Newt, I was going to say he has a chance to maybe cause a bit of upset to Joe, but he is actually quite fading a bit now, and he's probably more concerned about Dash now. As Geek, though, tries to make his way back into Josh, though, through the final sector, and just holds him off a little bit. This is going to be a very interesting fight heading through the stadium section.
I do question a little bit the race IQ there. Why would you go for that move there when it's more than likely, well, it's almost guaranteed that the AlphaTauri is going to file straight back past you down the main straight with the helping hand of DRS. I think Geek's only costing him time there in a battle between himself and Joe. That's the one that he's got to be thinking about.
I think so, yeah. I kind of think about that too, but I wonder if he's got enough ERS in the tank to maybe pull away as much as he possibly can. Well, no. There we go. He doesn't.
Just a weird one, really weird overtake from Geek there. He was obviously feeling that he was much quicker than Woolly Blobs, but just didn't have the pace to pull away. Not particularly surprising, though, as there goes the Williams of Alpha, relegating Ender Epic down a further position. 6 and 11 seconds worth of penalties apiece for the pair of them. Ender Epic is going to probably finish this race down in maybe 12th, which would be slightly unjust considering the pace that the Haas driver has shown has been very commendable indeed on their BUSR debut.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Williams and the Haas have really shown a really good, strong performance actually at the moment. And despite, the time penalties, I'm sure, for his debut, Ender Epic can look back on his performance with glee and happiness.
100%. Geek not repeating the same mistake on the previous lap because he stays behind Josh Woolley going into the stadium section. Dasher has disposed of the McLaren of last gen and now he's all over the back of the second AlphaTauri of Ari, and he is going to be joining Joe in assaulting Josh Woolley and Geek in the remaining 10 laps of this race. And look at the gap between third and fourth place. Geek has not got the pace at all of the Aston Martin of Joe, who is catching hand over fist and should be reclaiming second place in a matter of laps. In a matter of moments, Dasher will be taking fifth place of the AlphaTauri of Aria. There we go. Geek up into second place, pushing Josh Woolley down to third. Dasher pushes the other AlphaTauri down into sixth.
Yeah, Dasher really needs that now. He really, really does need that now. He's trying to focus his eyes set on Joe now, Joe's also focused on Josh Woolley as well. So Josh Woolley is a bit of a marked man in some ways. However, it is still 9 laps to go, however.
100%. And look at that gap, nearly to the 20-second mark that we spoke about earlier. 18.7 seconds, the definition of dominance, as Cameron Searle returning to type, it has to be said, comfortably out in front. Qualifying was close. The race certainly hasn't been.
Yeah, I mean, that is just an amazing performance as well. We talked about how, both in the grid start, how there was a chance he wouldn't, fail it, but he managed to do it. And then we talked about a safety car restart as well, and how it was his weakness. And the fact that he still managed to pull that off is, nothing short but respectable there from Cameron. And it's really going to show the kind of standard that we can expect from him for the remaining 7 races.
100%. Joe chomping at the bit to try and dispose of not one but 2 cars with the helping hand of DRS down into turn number 1. He's itching to try and get past Josh Woolley. Almost does it on the exit of the final corner. Unheard of. He just had so much more traction. Geek could be a little bit defenseless down into turn number 1. Josh Woolley gives Joe the big squeeze over to the middle of the circuit. The Aston Martin just about has the overspeed. Surely going to be braver on the brakes, but there's Geek under pressure around the outside. There's actually contact between Woolly Blobs and Geek, who could get pushed down behind the Aston Martin and does get a show off the road for his troubles as well. Joe up into third place.
God, that was so close. I was really worried they were going to make a contact there. But that was pretty good there from Joe, though. Josh, however, is still holding on to the second. However, for his dear life, Joe's just so much quicker and with the disposal of Geek now. Actually, Dasher is actually closing up as well in the final few stages, so this could actually be a quartet for P2.
Don't think Geek will be particularly happy about that. He did sort of roll the red carpet out for both of them to send it up the inside into turn one. I'm surprised he didn't defend it, to be honest, and it's cost him dearly because he's dropped a couple of places. Crucially, though, he's dropped that position to Joe, who is very, very quick on these much fresher medium compound tyres at this stage and should be making light work of Josh Woolley down into turn number one.
Yeah, I think he may be just letting them through just because he wants to see them fight again so he can take the advantage of the DRS, though. It's what happened that last lap, though, and it might happen again now as they exit out for the final quarters now. Joe and Josh will probably go at it again.
100%. Here comes the Aston Martin of Joe. Easy as you like, and Josh Woolley pushed down into third place. Not particularly surprising with the tyre offset that the Aston Martin has got, and I think Dasher could be following Joe through very, very shortly indeed.
Yep, absolutely. Good there from Joe. Up into second. We now reach the 20-second landmark of Cameron Stoll and Joe now, as Mad Dog and Ender Epic are going to go a bit side by side, heading down for turn one. Mad Dog just about holds it off from Ender.
Last Gen Newt, very close to the back of Aria, by the way. That gap just over a second, continuing to impress on his BUSR debut. That second McLaren car, good for the Constructors' Championship, potentially. The two AlphaTauris in the top 7, along with the two McLaren cars. But yeah, Cameron Stoll. The gap out in front is going to start to come down. Joe on the fresher medium compound tyres has dropped from 21 seconds to 19 and a half. But even with the 7-lap older tyres, don't expect the almighty surge towards the McLaren to be completed. Cameron Stoll, barring any major whoopsies, is going to be very comfortable in this race as we start lap number 30 with the reigning champion.
Absolutely. I mean, I hope there's no commentator's curse. We look back now at Dasher now. He's all over the back of Geek. Finally, he's actually managed to make up he actually managed to close up to Geek much earlier than I anticipated. Oh. You can see there from Geek, he just wobbles a little bit there. It's that tires, I believe it is. But Dasher with the DRS now, I think he's got all the time in the world now to make that overtake and make it stick. No, wait. Geek has actually got the DRS now for Woolley. He's going to try and make the overtake. Woolley goes defensive, and they go side by side down to turn one. And Geek, meanwhile, before the turn itself, manages to dispose of Josh Woolley as quickly as he possibly can. And Woolley now gets into the back of Dasher.
Attack, the best form of defense, very much proved there by Geek as he dumped the ERS to defend from Dasher and ended up flying past the AlphaTauri of Woolley to boot as well and getting back up onto the podium. That's his fight now. He's got to try and defend from the Ferrari of Geek and maybe use Josh Woolley as a little bit of a buffer. The two Williams have been in the wars in this race, in particular with each other, but this should be Mad Dog's opportunity to get back past his teammate, which has been 30 laps coming. They've almost been joined at the hip for the majority of this race, and through goes Mad Dog up into 8th position. Ender Epic and Dorsai's squabbling just behind them as well for 10th and 11th place in the same section of the track. Swinging around the outside is the Silver Arrows, but I think the Haas is not going to have the traction.
Wow, that was really exciting there. Mad Dog finally managed to overtake Alpha from Waltoli for so long. Dasher is just all over the back of Josh Woolley. That was nearly close for contact there as they go through the final sector now. He's going to use the DRS now to hopefully make quick use of Woolley. Now he just needs to catch up to Geek as much as he possibly can with 5 laps to go.
Josh Woolley doing Geek a solid there because he's pushed the Ferrari out of DRS range, but this should be very, very easy indeed for Dasher, potentially the easiest overtake that he's had to make all race. Josh Woolley make him go the long way round, but he's not even going to need the braking zone. Through goes the Ferrari and up into 4th position, and another AlphaTauri pushed down a place because there is Last Gen Newt continuing to impress, pushes Aria down into 7th.
Yeah, the good overtake there from Last Gen Newt, who overtakes Aria finally after so long, though. Aria continues to drop down a little bit. However, I wonder if he'll be able to hold on to 6th on his debut and without any penalties as well. It's a really strong showing from him. In fact, I think he actually gets 5th because of Woolley's penalties, if I'm not mistaken.
Definitely, yeah. Woolley blobs with 8 seconds of penalties, I believe, will drop him back behind his teammate Aria. But that second AlphaTauri is struggling for pace, so they're almost guaranteed of 6th and 7th in this race, but the order's still up for debate. Out in front, the gap has continued to drop, not by massive amounts, though. It's now 17.5 seconds. Joe definitely taking time out of Cameron Stoll with the fresher tyres that he's got, but Cameron Stoll serene out in front, very, very comfortable indeed. And the main battle that we've got to focus our attention on is for that final spot on the podium between Geek and Dasher.
Yeah, and that's just brewing ever more so slightly as time passes on now. It's just down to under a second now. I think Dasher knows he's got the better strategy. He is the better driver. Well, everyone thinks he's the better driver, in all honesty, though. But Willie, meanwhile, behind with the DRS, tries to have a look through on Dasher, but it's just the tires. It's just the tires and the grip that Dasher has that he's just going to be able to pull away effortlessly.
But Willie, it has to be said, doing a very good job on 7-lap older tyres to stay put underneath the rear wing of the Ferrari and continues to give Dasher a few things to think about in this middle sector. The Ferrari holding on to 4th place for the time being hasn't actually got back into DRS range of the Mercedes of Geek in front. So that could be very interesting. Once he does get inside the 1 second window, I think it could be very, very easy work for the Ferrari.
Yeah, I think it'll be very easy work for the Ferrari too. I think he'll be able to do it even before the final lap as well. But I wonder how much for Geek, how much he'll be able to attack. And I wonder because Willie has done actually really well despite being on, as you said, seven lap older tires. God, I'm weird. That he'll be able to continue to fight along with Geek and Dasher in the end.
Is this Dasher's opportunity to try and get inside the 1 second window? It's hovering around 0.999, but I think he just managed to get the DRS of the Mercedes in front as we come over the line. Are we going to see that rear wing flap open? Yes, we are, but got to be careful of Willie Blobs once again. I think he's burning some battery to try and get ahead of the Ferrari and continue to give Dasher a load of troubles on the run down into turn number 1. He has a little look over to the inside, not quite got the overspeed to outbrake that Scuderia Ferrari car and make mincemeat of him down into turn number 1.
Very close though, but for Dasher, it's what he needs now to catch up to Geek now. For Willie as well, it's also important for Dasher as well to have that DRS as well, because now he's going to be on that train now to catch up to Geek now, and Geek now has to defend from 2 drivers now.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult indeed for Geek to hold on to that podium place with the Ferrari now finally all over the back of the Mercedes car. That was a penalty for Reese Hands, I believe it was. First penalty of the race for the driver down in 14th, who has had a few trips into the runoff areas in this race. It's been some of the drivers have been thrown very much into the deep end. Some have sunk and some have swum very, very well. Last Gen U in particular being very, very impressive. Sat in 6th position, going to inherit 5th potentially if he can stay within 8 seconds of Willie Blobs. But that's a little bit of a contentious point, it has to be said.
No, I think it's definitely by far doable. I mean, not to mention as well, he does have all the clean air in front of him, being 6 seconds between Willie and Newitt. However, it's going to be interesting to see if Willie can even just get that little percentage of his tires left in him to try and catch up to Geek and Dasher. He's already fallen off so much now, and it's now Geek's and Dasher's duel.
Geek not defending it. He knows he's absolutely helpless down into turn number 1, and the Ferrari flies past and gets back up onto the podium. Geek has now just got to try and take this as long as possible. Stay glued to the rear of that Ferrari, but he has a big wobble coming out of turn number 3.
Yeah, I think that was that was really, really interesting. I wonder. God, that is really. Yeah, that was the blue flag.
Yeah, blue flags for the Red Bull of Chaotic, the only Red Bull on the grid getting out of the way. Josh Willie staying in contention for finishing in 5th because that gap continues to grow between himself and Last Gen U. 7 seconds now separating the AlphaTauri and the McLaren. Ari, remember, only half a second off the back of the McLaren as well. So Josh Willie could finish anywhere from 5th, 6th or 7th in the final couple of laps. Cameron Searle has started the penultimate lap with an advantage of 15.5 seconds. Dash at 7 further back from the Aston Martin of Joe. Geek trying his best to stay within DRS range of the Ferrari.
Yeah, Willie was also trying his best to stay in the DRS range of the Mercedes as well, because if that's gone, I think that's his chances of holding on to P5 all but gone. But Newitt has got Aria to worry about, however, behind him with the final 2 laps left to go. So for that, I wonder if Aria will be able to distract Last Gen Newitt enough that Willie can secure P5.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see if there's some team games going on. Aria switching very late over to the outside of the circuit and flies past the McLaren of Last Gen, who seems to be struggling on those tyres a little bit as they're pushed down into 7th place. Another opportunity, but it's the car in front that'll get the DRS for this second straight. I think Aria's going to be comfortable on the run-up into turn number 4.
Yeah, he is. He really is. And it's the second and third sectors now to see if Eric can just pull away from Last Gen Newitt. However, I think Newitt is not going to let this go. He may have saved some battery for the final laps previously. So Aria is far from safe from it. Josh, meanwhile, is nearly managing to seal onto P5, actually. He's actually nearly managed to offset that 8-second penalty. And I think Aria's probably doing all he can in the world to try to prevent that.
Yeah, but he's going to be a little bit helpless down into turn number one with the McLaren so close through the stadium section. Geek has fallen out of DRS range of Dasher through the stadium section. That probably ends our battle that we thought we were going to have for the final spot on the podium. And Josh Willie might be putting pressure on the Mercedes down into turn number one. Here is that battle for fourth and fifth. Well, here's the race leader, Cameron Sell, who has been once again comfortable out in front. Here comes Josh Willie looking to push Geek further down the field into fifth place. Won't end like that because of the penalties, drifting over the sausage curb on the apex is the AlphaTauri and remains in formation. Sat just behind the Mercedes. The gap behind 7.8 seconds. Very, very close indeed to Josh Willie holding on to P5.
That was really close there from Willie. He nearly lost it actually through the first couple of corners. And the fact that he managed to even hold it in is a miracle in itself.
100% coming into the closing stages. Cameron Searle coming up towards the stadium section. The reigning champion. He felt like the spring series was robbed from him. He then romped home to win the summer championship. And he's going to start as he means to go on. Who else would it be winning the season opener in the BUSR series? By 14 seconds is Cameron Searle driving for McLaren this time, that takes the season opener by a country mile. Nobody even in the same postcode as the reigning champion. Joe has driven a solid race though. He's going to come home in second place in absolutely the definition of no man's land. Nearly 15 seconds off the back of Searle, 8 seconds clear of Dasher, who does finish on the podium. It was a commendable fight from Geek, but the strategy selected by the Ferrari favourable in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Aria will come on to finish in sixth, and I think it's going to be really tight for him to see if he'll be able to hold off into last gen Newt. He does hold into him. He does. Yeah, wow.
A tenth of a second separating the AlphaTauris. Last gen unit a further 2 tenths back, and then it'll be the two Williams cars in 8th and 9th, and 10th places going to be door size after the penalties are applied to the Haas of Ender Epic, with 17 of them to his name.
Yeah, definitely, but I wonder if he'll be able to, I wonder how many positions he'll drop. It's just the question. Yeezy will come out the line to finish in 12th. Really good performance from him, actually, given his position in qualifying. Really commendable by him. Reese, despite the spins he's had twice, comes back to go and collect a memorable P13 on his debut. Really good there from the Alpine driver. Lemon behind will finish in P14.
Yeah, all the new faces putting on a very good show and doing themselves proud on their BUSR debuts, but it is the favourite, the one we all expected to win the race, ends up winning it, and it is Cameron Searle once again standing on the top step of the podium.
Yeah, massive congratulations to Cameron Searle. He'll sure be as all really happy to start off the season in that sense and in that fashion as well, as he celebrates on the podium, which will surely be not the last time this season.
8 races. Can he win all 8 races? That is the question that a lot of people will be asking, because that was quite the dominant show, it has to be said.
Yeah, it was quite the dominant show. However, I'm quite pleased that he didn't win by 20 seconds. He only won by 14 seconds. So it does show that the BUSR grid is improving.
Absolutely, and wasn't quite the 20 seconds that we called, but it is still a McLaren winning the race and looking to build on what was a brilliant championship win last time around. I think we're going to do some interviews now.
Exciting.
Yeah, so they're just having their post-race debrief, and then we'll be hopefully speaking to the podium finishers who all have something to say, something very interesting to say. Joe's probably slightly less, well, the top 2, in fact, probably slightly less interesting because they were pretty much on their own for the whole race.
Yeah, they really were, actually. But the fact that, even though Cameron Searle just, went off and win, but the fact from P2 all the way down to like P10 had constant battles throughout the entire race for itself means that the Mexican Grand Prix that we just seen here was just nothing short but amazing. And if anything, it has shown like the kind of standards that we can expect to see year in all race round for the Winter Championship.
Driver of the day, who are you thinking?
Last gen knew it. His debut, he did really well against more established drivers, and even though he didn't manage to catch on to P5 or P6, I think he still showed some really good like performance against some developed drivers. And Cameron still will be more than happy, proud to praise his teammate for his debut.
Definitely, and I'll probably go along with that. We have got an update as well for the quali prize. I thought Joe was involved in the group that we weren't going to be giving it to, but Joe has won it after he qualified on the front row, so he's got himself a lovely trip to the Silverstone Museum to look forward to.
Damn, that's really impressive. Good for him.
I'm sure we'll be absolutely delighted by that as we still just wait for the I think the Lobby 2 race to finish, and then we can have our interviews conducted. But Cameron Searle, starting as he means to go on, as he usually does, it has to be said. Absolutely rapid on this game. And if we
What
do
are your
move...
thoughts on the race, Tom?
Oh, what are my thoughts on the race? My thoughts on the race? Well, it wasn't quite as exciting as we normally see in the Mexico City Grand Prix. We only had that one safety car. It was early in the race. The strategy wasn't quite as interesting. So it wasn't a classic, but definitely a lot of drivers laying a marker down.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, usually, as we always get the case with the previous BSUR traditions, first races will always end up in chaos. And the fact that we've only had just one safety car out of a potential 5 here for Mexico, and considering that what we've had transpired here last season or last year in the Winter Championship in round 2, yeah, it's been more or less very peaceful. But it does show the pace and what can we expect from future races. Not being less as necessarily, yes, there'll be nothing like unchaotic, but the standard of racing has surely have improved. That the fact we've only got one safety car, and not to mention as well a lot less track limit violations too.
100%. We only had one major incident, which was on lap 1, which is kind of expected, to be honest, the two Williams coming together, and then it was the Ferrari BB Aggie who just had absolutely nowhere to go, clattered into Mad Dog, who was facing the wrong way, and that was our only retiree as well.
Yeah, and considering the fact that we had some other spins as well, one's from Reese and one's from the other Alpine as well. Well, both Alpines managed to spin around in the sector 2, and the fact that there was no yellow flag, or the fact they didn't retire, that again was, quite an achievement as well in themselves. And the fact that they managed to spin correctly, that the fact they managed to keep the car going is, a very achievable feat.
100%, yeah. If while we wait for the interviews, they're still in their debrief. Do you want to tell everyone where we'll be racing next week, Amir?
Thank you very much, Tom. I believe so. This is the first of the North American races, or the American continent races. So our first 4 races will actually be in the American continent here. So our next one, if I'm not mistaken, will be Interlagos, and then we head into Miami that's for round 3. However, for the next race, if I am not mistaken, we're going to Zandvoort.
Oh, an interesting one. That should be some very spicy battles indeed. We have had the debrief come to an end, and we're going to bring in the top 3 for a quick little interview to get their thoughts on the race. Starting off with the driver that finished in 3rd overall, and it is Dasher that we are going to drag in. Dasher, driving for the Scuderia Ferrari car, picking up a podium in the first race of the season. You must be pretty happy with your efforts.
It was definitely a race that happened. Had to navigate some back markers, and yeah, that was kind of it really. Just kind of drove to the end.
What were your thoughts on the strategy? Because it seemed pretty mixed out in front, either the soft or the hard tyres. Did you ever consider starting on the softs?
Ever since I've started playing F123, I have always started on the hards. I have rarely ever changed. It seems to work, and it worked again today. So I saw a lot of soft mediums, and I go tried and true. We stick on the hards, and it worked out today.
Amir, anything you'd like to add to that one?
Congratulations on P3 Dasher. It's been you did really well so far from starting from the position that you were. Did you ever feel that yourself that given the landscape of the race that you could achieve in P2 potentially?
Obviously, Cameron's just we're all driving F2 and that man's driving F1. But no, Joe was just faster than me today on the same strategy. And then I was better than Geek and Wooly, so not really much else to say there. P3 was just kind of where I sat really. I didn't really have either way to go.
Yeah, amazing performance though, Dasher. Congratulations on your P3. It's surely you'll be very proud for it to start the season on such a high.
Thinking you?
Yeah, just a quick one from me as well. Next week, Zandvoort, round number 2. How are you feeling about that one?
Unfortunately, for I am an alumni, I am employed, unlike half the people here. So I will only be here every other week. So Brazil will be the next time you'll see me.
Looking forward to Brazil, though?
Yeah, Brazil's always a fan favourite. I won my second and probably final championship there with a very close race against Joe, actually, himself. So, no, always a good race at Brazil. So, looking forward to that.
So, well, thank you very much for talking to us. We do appreciate it, and congratulations on your 3rd place.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.
So, that is 3rd position done. We're now going to bring in the runner-up, Joe, who was a little bit lonely throughout the race, it has to be said, but we'll definitely have something interesting to talk about, I am sure, especially lap number 1. Joe, hello, runner-up today. Did you feel that that was the best that you could have achieved?
Do you know what? This is basically a win, to be honest, because no one beats Cameron unless he puts in a wall. So, yeah. Basically a win. I'm quite happy with P2, given who was P1.
Were you surprised how close qualifying was, though? Because the top 3, very close together indeed. You're obviously part of that.
I would have expected Cameron to be a couple more tenths down the road. I definitely had a lot of time in my lap. I could maybe have done a 3 or a 2. So my lap was pretty shoddy. I was more occupied watching the sprint. So it's just kind of, yeah, well, maybe I'll go out and do a lap.
Weren't we all? Amir, anything you'd like to say to our runner-up?
Well done on P2. I'm sure it was a really good performance. You were the second most dominant driver there outside of Cameron. As Tom said, it was no man's land effectively. Anything looking forward to coming into Interlagos? Coming into Zandvoort for next race.
I don't mind Zandvoort. It's all right. I know Geek's been quite strong there in the past. Not sure about some of the other people fighting at the front today. I think Cameron will be clear as he always is. You just kind of expect him to be ahead of anyone. Even if he's not super dominant in qualifying, his race pace is, pretty unbeatable. So, yeah. It can be a bit of a train track. You get in the DRS, you just kind of get stuck behind the car, you can't really overtake. So that'll be interesting, seeing how that race is managed. Yeah.
Final as well. Obviously, you went for the alternate strategy, starting on the hards, jumping onto the softer or the medium tyre, later on. How easy was it to make way back through the pack? Because you'd have a few cars that you had to overtake.
Yeah, I thought the hard would have been one of the favoured tyres to start with, but I was wrong. So when I saw a lot of soft runners, I was a bit, okay. But as soon as I kind of saw that, I was like, my mission is to kind of go long, overcut, get as big of a tyre delta to those I'm battling to make the move, quick and fast. I don't want to give them the opportunity to be in my DRS at any point. So having that tyre offset was very good. I think my tyres were probably 1.5 seconds faster a lap than Geek and Wooly at the point where I was kind of overtaking them. Wooly, I think, pitted a couple laps earlier, so I definitely had a massive tyre delta over him, and that made getting past a lot easier. I could just kind of drive up to the back of them, use the DRS, and that was that. Made my life a bit easier. And I got a bit of DRS from Cameron the lap before when I was going to pit, but I was like, I'm going to use the DRS and just kind of build up a little bit more battery before going through. So I had a nice 100% battery before having to battle with those two as well, which was very helpful.
Sweet. Well, thank you very much for talking to us. Pleasure as always. Congratulations on your second place, and best of luck for next week.
Thank you.
So we've done our 2 podium sitters, but now we're going to talk to Cameron Searle, who has won. As he always does, the Max Verstappen is how he's known in the BUSR, and I think he's living up to that tag very, very well. Cameron, hello, new season, same Cameron Searle. You must be pleased with that performance.
Absolutely, yeah. Loved it. It's one of my favourite tracks, and yeah, just the break at the start, and I was just cruising.
After how close it was in qualifying, did you think that you would have that much of an advantage in race pace over everybody else?
I don't think it was race pace advantage as such. It was a massive strategy advantage. The whole time we ran a compound softer, and the tyre wear's really not that bad at Mexico. So there wasn't a significant drop off. It was hard to drive, sure, but yeah, pace was there the whole time.
Was there? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and then just I think there was a little bit of a mix up turn one, and got the break and then just relaxed.
Never any consideration at all to use the hard tyres because they were favoured by your two main rivals in the race in the end, Joe and Dasher.
Not really. As I had last time we were here, mediums can go from lap 15 reasonably to the end. So as soon as we got near that on the softs, without a safety car, it was sort of a set decision.
Amir, anything else you'd like to add?
Congratulations on your win, Cameron. As we mentioned before, it was a really good dominant performance for him. Is this going to set the championship for you?
I'd hope so. I'd like it to, but this is one of my best tracks, so we'll see how it goes from here.
Oh, thank you very much for talking to us. As always, first place as always. As well, congratulations on another dominant performance. And I'm sure we'll be speaking to you plenty of times throughout the rest of this season.
Thank you very much, guys. I hope to see you soon.
Cheers, Cameron. Well, that is the end of round number 1. It wasn't necessarily a BUSR Classic, but it had an absolutely box office performance from our reigning champion. And once again, championship leader Cameron Searle, starting as he means to go on and dominating the Mexican Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean, really good performance there from Cameron. But, a lot of things as well, despite it not being a BUSR Classic, there's a lot of promising signs, as we mentioned before, that are going to set this championship alight. So, as we mentioned, Cameron Searle only managed to get pole position just by a few hundredths after all. We had exciting battles for P3, for P7, for P6, and also for P10 as well. And hopefully that's going to carry out throughout the entire season.
100%. And finally, thank you everybody for watching. Zandvoort next week. Hopefully you'll come back and join us once again. Amir, where can people check you out if they want to see what you're doing outside of BUSR commentary?
You can follow me over at Instagram at Amir_Oates.
Thank you very much. Be sure to get involved in that. If you want to see what I'm doing, either on Twitter or X at TW06 or on TikTok if you're a darts fan, wilco.darts. You can check me out over there. But thank you everybody for watching. Zandvoort next week. Get ready for it. It's going to be an absolute cracker, I'm sure. But thank you for joining us today. I've been Tom. Amir has been alongside me. We'll see you next time.
And no moment in history where I could stand and say, oh, it begins here, now.